Good afternoon, everyone. Glad you could join us today. My name is Justin LaFontaine. I'm the program lead for the Ontario Tourism Innovation Lab. Thank you for joining us. This is our fourth in our series of Digital Shift virtual workshops. We're excited to have the theme today of virtual reality tours, and we're excited about the chat that we'll learn more about that with some innovative partnerships happening in Ontario. We have tourism entrepreneurs, small businesses, and organizations joining us from across the province today, and a full agenda, so we're going to start right away. First, I'd like to thank the Ontario Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture Industries for their support of the lab and this virtual workshop series. Also, a shout out to the municipality of Chatham-Kent for the inspiration and catalyst to launch this virtual workshop series. For those who have not connected with us yet, the Ontario Tourism Innovation Lab is a nonprofit initiative and tourism development incubator. Our goal is to find, foster, and support tourism innovation and entrepreneurs across the province. Launched as a pilot in Windsor, Essex in 2018, the lab and its Spark Mentorships and Grants program are now expanding to regions across the province, including new Spark rounds in Bruce County, Cornwall, London, Northwest Ontario, Oxford County, and Windsor, Essex. So all of those places, if you happen to be in those, or if you have friends or colleagues, we will be running the Spark program in those areas so people can come forward with new tourism ideas. And if selected, we'll receive a grant and a tourism mentorship to help move their idea forward. The lab is a program of Hackforge and is based at the University of Windsor Epicenter. For more information, our website is tourisminnovation.ca. You can follow us on social media for updates. In addition to sparking and supporting new tourism ideas, one of our emerging goals is to cultivate and propel more collaborations between the tourism and tech sectors to spark new innovations, offerings, and product delivery. So this virtual workshop, again, features a Zoom-side chat with shift experts from Indigenous Tourism Ontario and Origin. And we run these workshops in partnership with the incredible team at WEtech Alliance. My colleague, Adam Castle, who you see on the call, is the Director of Venture Services for WEtech, and will be leading the second half of today's session, outlining tangible tools small businesses and organizations can use to initiate and test new digital ideas. But as mentioned, first we'll dive into our Zoom-side chat with our shift experts to discuss their innovative partnership in developing Indigenous tourism experiences in virtual reality. There'll be an opportunity to submit questions during our chat, and Adam will field them to our speakers through the conversation. So with that, if I could ask our special guest panelists to turn their videos and microphones on. And I'd like to welcome Kevin Eshkagogan, President and CEO of Indigenous Tourism Ontario, Melissa Hardy-Giles, owner of Origin, and Paul Giles, Director of Origin. And I'd first just like to give them the opportunity to introduce their organizations and businesses to our audience today. So first we'll start with Kevin. Kevin's on the line through audio. So Kevin, could you tell our audience today a little bit more about Indigenous Tourism Ontario?
Absolutely. So I'll start with my formal introduction. So Ani Bojo, Gigido Nene Dejnikaz, Nadona Singh Donjabog, Ganoje Dodam. So I'm coming to you from Manitoulin Island today. That's where I make my home and our office is located. Indigenous Tourism Ontario is the first and only province-wide and recognized Indigenous tourism organization in Ontario. We've been doing work in the industry from going back to about 2008, and we're here simply enough to support Indigenous tourism operators. Of course, during these challenging times, our mandate fits along with what's going on in the world very well. And we're really glad to be partnering with Origin on some initiatives that are meant to help Indigenous tourism operators. With that, I'll leave it at that. I know we've got a short time frame here, so miigwech.
Thank you, Kevin. And before I get Melissa and Paul to give a welcome on behalf of Origin, they provided a short video, which we'll play right now. It's a great introduction to their business and the work that they're doing.
Hi, my name is Melissa Hardy-Giles, and I was born and raised on Lake Helen Reserve. I'm excited to tell you about our new revolutionary virtual reality system called Immersive Link. Would you like to preserve valuable traditions, language, and cultural protocols that shape and define your nation? Internally, these experiences provide a source of pride while promoting the importance of culture and traditions to our youth and other community members. Externally, these experiences serve as a diversity and awareness training tool which promotes understanding of your unique nation and its protocols for industry partners and employers in your area. 100% of our profits are donated to our Indigenous knowledge keepers and programming to support our people. Please visit immersivelink.ca for more information.
Great. Well, wonderful introductory video, and I'll hand it maybe over to Melissa and Paul just to add anything more if you'd like to share about your business and some of the offerings that you provide.
Sure. Thank you very much, Justin. There's not much more I could add to my video, but I'm really excited to work with Indigenous Tourism Ontario and to share our cultural library. And we also have a career library as well, but maybe I'll transfer it over to Paul and he can speak to it as well.
Sure. So Melissa Hardy-Giles from Red Rock Indian Band, which is a community about an hour east of Thunder Bay. And myself, I grew up in the town of Rainy River, and my name is Paul Giles. I'm director of Origin. Melissa and I started the company about 12 years ago, and we're really actually started and primarily focused on workforce development. So we help people connect to careers, and a lot of the VR work that we did was an evolution of other innovative ways that we found to connect, especially Indigenous people, to different career opportunities. So over the years, we've kind of gone from heavy equipment simulators, and we just evolved into this technology. And the cultural library that you saw focused on in the video was basically an extension. Once we hit 800 or 900 schools in Ontario last year, we realized the opportunity to start sharing, doing our part towards reconciliation. So that really came after the career library, but so we have two kind of primary focuses on a lot of our content, which is the careers, and then now the Indigenous cultural content. And as a result of that, we've been working a little bit more with Indigenous Tourism Ontario to showcase some of their unique Indigenous cultural experiences.
Great, thank you. So that kind of leads into the first question in terms of how the partnership came together between Indigenous Tourism Ontario and Origin, and how the initiative to do and offer Indigenous tourism experiences and tours on virtual reality, how that all sparked.
Yeah, I'll take the lead on this one. And I swear Paul was reading my mind. I was sitting at my desk one day, and though we're not anywhere near each other and never met before, as we were starting to think about COVID-19 and how it was affecting our Indigenous tourism businesses, we were thinking, well, technology is definitely going to be embraced. How can we help our operators embrace that technology as well and diversify their revenue streams? And we first thought of virtual tours, virtual reality tours, and augmented reality tours. And funny enough, within the week, we put that energy out into the universe. And within the week, Paul reached out to me through LinkedIn, through technology, to spur the discussion about the work that they do and begin a relationship of trying to work together. And up until that point, I was unaware of Origin, And because Paul took the initiative and came out and reached out to me, that's where this relationship began. And now we've been meeting, seems like every week, and we're making great progress here. And we're looking to premiere our first activities in early November, mid-November. So that's my version of the story. I'll let Paul maybe share and contribute to that. But yeah, it was a great beginning. It was simply with Paul reaching out and us thinking about how to better do this.
Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate. I'll go with that too. Yeah, I think that's pretty close.
Well, I just wanted to add around that the power of reaching out. I can tell you that from my personal and professional experience, many of the most successful initiatives I've been part of have started with, myself or on the other, the other partner being proactive and seeing the opportunity and planting the seed and having that conversation. So I think that's very powerful, and clearly from not that long ago, you guys have moved forward with a partnership, and we'll be doing some great work this year and into the next year. Can you describe what the virtual reality initiative is a little bit more in terms of what you're planning to, your goals around it, some of the subjects and people and stories you're planning to highlight and feature?
Yeah, so from a tourism perspective, and that's sort of my realm, and we stay in our lane, to be quite honest. We stay in our lane here, and we focus on the tourism side of things. So our job at ITO is to help Indigenous tourism operators. And our vision for this particular initiative is to help them diversify their product lines, also use the virtual reality elements for marketing tools as well. But we want to help them tell their story. And Indigenous tourism, at least from ITO's perspective, is 100% about allowing Indigenous people to the framework and the infrastructure to tell their story on their terms, whatever that story may be. And that's critical to making a genuine experience happen. And with the expertise at Origin, they're providing us with the tools to allow business operators to do this in different ways now. So that's our perspective from ITO, and our vision is to share as many of those stories as possible through the use of virtual reality technology through Origin.
Yeah. So I think just to kind of expand on Kevin's thoughts, especially right now, given COVID and everything that all of us are going through with that, we're all kind of pivoting a little bit and shifting. And I think, along with struggles come opportunities, and there are opportunities, especially with the technology. I think that there's going to be a massive shift. When we all get through this pandemic, I think it'll look different when it comes to tourism and these big, large, especially some of the cruise ship incidences and stuff that we all were exposed to right off the start. I think it'll make us think a little bit differently about those big mass tourism operations. And so, as such, I think people are, and especially in our area of Ontario, a lot of staycations forced, but I think people really took another look at the nature, the kind of smaller operations in the area, and just started rethinking about the value behind that. The value propositions changed. And I think that, as Canada, even from a, sort of a manufacturing standpoint and what's made in Canada, I see a shift happening, and I'm excited about that shift because, the more we stay, putting money back into our own economies, the better off we all are, of course. And so the same is true with tourism. And I think that the micro-tourism operations stand to really benefit as long as they can promote themselves and what they have to offer. And I think with some of the technologies, their expectation levels of information go through the roof as the technologies improve. And so people being able to take things like virtual tours to really get that sense of putting themselves there before they make the decision to purchase and go, I think that's a stronger and stronger case every day.
Definitely better informed choices at that point.
I'm actually hearing from a number of our regional partners, just right on that message in terms of providing more information and experiences in that planning stage before people choose to visit, to learn, how to be respectful while they're in a certain environment or in a region, some of the things that they might be able to explore without having that physical touch point initially. So learning a lot about the opportunities through technology. So, and I think, at the end of the day, this winter, it's going to be kind of like no other, for many, many, many reasons. But we do have our population in Ontario that is a significant traveling and visitor customer base. And most, if not close to, the majority will not be leaving our province this winter to go to, the sunnier destinations, for example. So there's actually a great opportunity to get put the word out and change people's perceptions about traveling in Ontario, not just in the summertime, but throughout the year and some of the more off seasons. So really exciting that you're providing those tools and you're working with the Indigenous tourism operators and folks that provide those experiences, the ones that are maybe lesser known, to kind of put them on the agenda. I was going to ask, from just a potential customer or client perspective, what do they need to know, if they're, running a tourism business or do have an experience that would be something they would be interested in kind of showcasing through the technology of virtual reality? What's kind of tips and tricks or steps that they would have to consider, before they call you or when they call you or another company that would provide that kind of technology support?
So I just want to clarify before, if
Sure.
I jump in there and answer that, is that question directed towards Origin and
Yeah.
support of Origin?
Sorry, Origin.
Is that one for, like, Indigenous Tourism Ontario and us are working on a specific initiative, and there's some sort of ground rules, and I'll just park that and let Kevin address any of those kinds of questions around how that might work. But just in general, like generally speaking, if a tourist operator wanted to reach out individually and look at information like this, I think that, profiling what they have to offer that's unique, of course, is what's their value proposition and what do they have that differentiates themselves. And then it's a bit of a quick sniff test in terms of how would that translate on 360 video in an immersive environment. And I think that, again, if you look at the technology in general, Oculus just released a new VR headset called the Quest 2, and it's got like massive amounts of storage and massive amounts of a hard drive. It's the next kind of medium. There's all kinds of numbers around how many headsets are out there and how many are expected to be, but it's definitely a new medium. It's not a computer. It's not a screen. It's a TV, but it's all of the above. And so you'll see things like big companies like Netflix and the gaming industry and all these other applications being developed right now that are usable in those headset devices. And if you think about that, there's more and more people using them, more and more people shopping with them, more and more people searching the web. So there's something like that's called WebXR that's available, and all the websites are being converted right now as we speak into a medium that displays properly in those headsets. So that's a powerful thing for companies to pay attention to. And I think that, traditional video has limitations, and people need to think about that. And they need to think about, from a cost standpoint, it's not drastically different than a professional video production. And it's really something that packs a lot more punch and if you've tried it or if you haven't tried it, it really does feel like you're there. And the difference being is when you turn in with the headsets on, you can sort of dictate and steer and navigate what it is and how you want to see it. So, I think that tourist operators should be considering that as the next way to kind of promote their offerings.
You'd mentioned there, I'll just jump in really quick. You mentioned that, they have to go through sort of the sniff test, right? Does this translate well in this sort of new medium? what does that look like for you? And how do you sort of determine, okay, like this is something that really we can communicate your same value in this brand new way. Here's sort of how we can roll it out.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it does come down to visuals, and then how will that portray? And I think the easiest way to kind of get people's heads around it is, you know, in a traditional film, you're moving in kind of one siloed direction. So you can have a chain of events that bring somebody in a storyline in a linear fashion. And instead of that, what you have is you have an immersed experience. It's more stationary, and all of the visuals sort of need to be closer as such. There's some exceptions to that, but what translates easiest and best is visuals that are near a stationary camera that's capturing in all direction at the same time. Yeah, I don't want to go too much into that, but that's literally a big difference. You're going one direction and you're dictating the story, so you determine. It's a lot about script and messaging verbally with traditional video, and with 360 immersive, not at all. So there's a lot less verbal cues, and there's a lot more some of the other sensory perceptions that you can place in the background, because you don't have to have sort of, if you look at a living room, I guess, if you were shooting a common living room, if you're shooting a video, you might pan around in a certain direction and have somebody look at things, but you're controlling how long they look at it, and you're controlling the message behind it. And in 360, it's not that way at all. You know, you could shoot the couch, the chair, the lounger, the vase, the vase, the TV, you know, and all that all at once, and the individual viewing it can decide if they like the TV more or if they like the vase more. So that might not be the best analogy, but
no, I like it. It almost sort of opens up all of this different context, right? It's the difference between typing a message and seeing someone face to face on a Zoom video. You get to sort of take in the context. How are they speaking? What are their facial expressions, right? That's kind of the same way with 360, is you get to sort of envelop yourself in this, you know, immersive experience and figure out things for yourself instead of just being told that this is what's happening.
100%.
One thing I like to describe it as is the difference between a picture and a movie.
Yeah.
It's the same difference between the movie and the 360 video. So
yeah, that's a good way to think about it. The only other thing I would maybe add to that is that that's the other part, is if you're viewing this with the headset, which is sort of the best and optimal way to view it, you really don't have any other distraction. So you get 100% of that audience's focus to communicate. And let's face it, we're all like device overloaded. And so we could be having a Zoom conversation, and here I am with a message on my phone. I could be looking down and answering it. So it's really kind of a commonplace now, but you don't have any of that when you're in the headsets. You kind of grasp their full attention, and that's a powerful way to communicate. So.
And it's today's way of communication as well, right? And it's going to be even more so as our young ones start growing up here. It's like everyone's running around with an iPad or a phone or something to that degree, for sure.
Great. Adam, are there any questions that have come in, just to check on that?
No, none.
Okay, good. If there are questions out there, feel free to send them in. Adam will shout them out. Kevin, how was the response, you know, or how's this been received from the Indigenous Tourism Ontario stakeholder and member perspective?
Well, it's still very much new, right? So when we look at this concept, it's what we're really doing here is we're contributing to remodeling the Indigenous tourism framework and the model for the industry. And this particular type of project, and the reason, look, I don't have video today is I'm on a First Nation, and the bandwidth here is pretty limited. So in terms of technology, we still have some room to catch up. We have a gap that we need to close, and the operators, a lot of our Northern Ontario operators, for example, have very, very limited ability to participate. So we're trying to make this really simple for them, but we also have to educate the operators. And your question earlier is, what do they need to do? We simply enough want them to be themselves. And we'll bring who we think are clearly the experts on this with Paul and Melissa and their team to come in and help them and support them. And we're just the collaborators. We're the people, ITO is just bringing the people together. And the stars are obviously the operators, but educating them on this process. So the 5 that we're starting with, for example, we're not asking them to do anything special other than be themselves and do their experience. We're going to help them create the storyline, which is their tours anyways. And, Paul and his team will come in and take all the footage that they need and produce it into something fantastic so that, the operator is telling their story and they're embracing the technology without having to become experts in the technology. So it's a great relationship where we have, the people to work with. Paul and Melissa and their team have the expertise, and the operators have that product that we're trying to get to the marketplace so that they can share their story for so many different reasons on so many different fronts.
Great. And so it sounds like work is underway. And is there a timeline? Is this through 2021 to stay tuned for some updates related to the project and the partnership?
Yeah, I'll jump in really quick here, but yeah, the project itself with this relationship is, we're trying to premiere our first. We say 1 to 5, and just reviewed the timelines yesterday, or it's going to be, there's going to be some really great work done there in the sense that, at the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair, we're going to be premiering our first set, and then. From then on, it's a continual intake moving forward based on resources we have with ITO and creating and implementing a sustainable model that continues to grow additional product offerings.
Super exciting. Well, thanks so much for sharing the information about this partnership and the initiative. Maybe I'll ask Melissa, could you let our audience know if they'd like to learn more about your company, your website, and how to find out more about you?
Sure, you could find out about us on our website at www.immersivelink.ca, or you can email Paul or myself, both at our first names, Melissa or Paul, at origin or at immersivelink.ca. My apologies. Thank you everyone for your time today.
Great, thanks so much. And Kevin, how can people find out more about all the great work you're doing at Indigenous Tourism Ontario?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the easiest ways is go to our corporate site and at indigenoustourismontario.ca, and you can go email info@indigenoustourismontario.ca. For consumer information on this, which we're continually working on, we have a consumer-facing site with indigenousexperienceontario.com. So there's a couple of different ways, but we're easy to find online. We've been putting a lot of efforts into this technology and into the work that we do, and we're easy to find, and the easiest way to get in touch with us is reach out.
Awesome, thanks so much. And of course, we'll promote any updates that we receive through our social media and other channels in the months to come. So congrats again on this work, and we're really looking forward to seeing the efforts come to light in the next few months. So thank you, Kevin, Melissa, and Paul. With that, we're going to switch over to the Digital Shift program and tool run-through with, again, my colleague, Adam Castle from WEtech Alliance. So Adam, handing the reins over to you.
Thanks, Justin. And we'll just say too, if anyone is looking for the first bit of that conversation, we will have it sent out as video. I know some sort of just joined, so we'll be able to send it over for everybody as well, so that you're able to get it. So let me just make sure I'm sharing the right thing here. There. So thank you so much, Justin, for that wonderful welcome, and thank you everyone for being here today. I just want to make sure, because last time we had a few issues with making sure everyone could see. So I just want to make sure everyone's okay. Justin, if you want to pop on, let me know that everything is good. Hello.
Is it? It looks good here.
Oh,
I see
everything's good. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Just getting here. I wanted to make sure that everything was
Yeah.
everything was good. Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful. So, thank you so much. As Justin mentioned, I'm the Director of Venture Services for WEtech Alliance, and I've spent the last 7 years working in economic development. I've worked with hundreds of companies across our region on growing strategy and business development. WEtech Alliance is actually a regional innovation center. We're one of 17 across Ontario, and our mandate is to help teach tech companies how to scale and grow in Windsor, Essex, and Chatham-Kent. And we're so excited for this partnership with OTIL because we get to sort of reach out across Ontario, across our network, and mingle with so many incredible business owners. So really, really excited to collaborate with the lab on this. These development tools that we've sort of put together are fully customized, and the templates are being delivered for the first time ever province-wide, especially to that tourism sector audience. Now, we work with a lot of startups at WEtech Alliance, and what we're going to teach you today is really a framework that we see them using in order to rapidly test out new ideas in a way that's relatively safe and rather low risk. There's going to be some time at the end of my overview to ask questions, of course, as well. And before we jump into our Zoom side chat, actually at the end before we sort of wrap everything up. So I wanted to start off really by framing what we define as a digital shift. And for a very long time at WEtech and really around our network, we said that every business is a tech business, and we hear that underscored today by talking with Origin and the team at OTI, and really, if you don't know that yet as a business, you're going to have to. And what I mean by that is that you're taking technology and really starting to put it at the core of what you do as an entrepreneur. Perhaps your products or services aren't tech forward, but now, especially now more than ever, small businesses across the globe and across Ontario, they really need to incorporate tech in order to ensure your value can still be delivered in a safe and most importantly, really sustainable ways. So we think that there's a lot of value in thinking like a startup at this time. And that's because startups operate in a really different way. They operate under a few really key principles that help them excel under uncertainty. And that's what everyone is facing. So in fact, many believe that these startups, they're already businesses, but truth is that they're organized experiments, right? Nothing more. And they're really testing out what their assumptions are and searching for a business model that fits their product. They teach us to do a couple things really well. And the first thing is to disregard the status quo. They want you to be curious. They want you to make mistakes. They want you to get messy and really to fail fast, right? You have to learn deep and know whether I should be persevering here or pivoting. Now, as many of us begin to open our businesses back up, we're in stage 3, most of Ontario. There's talk of going to stage 4, what that looks like. One thing that we're seeing really across every sector is the need for businesses to start to employ more flexibility in terms of how you're delivering that value to your customer. Now, this doesn't always mean more technology. In almost 98% of cases, it does though. So developing ways to deliver that magic and value of your business through technology, it's so vital to being prepared for what the next wave is going to look like, what winter looks like. And so instead of going back to, normal, we must all learn to really start to move forward, embrace change, and create these new tools to ensure that our businesses can be sustained over the long term, right? And that's really everything that we're trying to do with this program and with our work both at the OTIL and WEtech Alliance is teaching businesses how to wrap their great, incredible ideas around really solid, repeatable business models that can keep going long after. So I want to take a couple seconds here to focus on the how of idea creation. And we had, many who have loved the tools over the course of these 3 or the previous 3 sessions, but didn't really know where to start in terms of creating an idea for their own shift. And so I was lucky enough, actually a few years ago, to watch a presentation from Duncan Wardle at a conference. And Duncan is the former head of innovation at creativity at Disney Global. And really, I encourage you to check out his TED Talks. But what you're going to hear him talk about is that creativity is a process. And that's often made nearly impossible through overthinking. And I think that's something that we're all so guilty of doing. In baseball, for example, you'll often hear coaches yell, "try easier" to batters at the plate. I really love that as this personal phrase, and I'll use it to remind both our clients and my colleagues to approach creativity and problem solving really with openness and curiosity. And so one of the easiest ways to go about trying easier is actually stop trying to invent something that already exists, right? True genius is more often than not iterative. It's a process. Innovation, not invention, right? So R&D, in this case, it actually stands for research and duplicate. For inspiration on your next experiment or what you want to try, look out for things that already exist and are really being leveraged in new ways, and innovate on those to make it fit for what works with you. So our guests today use virtual reality to make this really powerful connection with guests who aren't able to visit physically right now. VR technology, of course, isn't new. It's being used today in industry to design and test whole factories. And on the flip side, when we face our customers with virtual reality, what we're finding is that it's moving out of this fun gimmick phase. And that's something that Paul was talking about. You know, it's a really valuable way to connect with your customer. And it can be this incredibly important way as a business to stay relevant and stay top of mind. So you may be selling or you may not be selling this little flower here in this picture, right? And the idea behind this is that that's fine because people aren't going to be buying this flower, even though that's your product. What they're buying is Super Mario shooting fireballs. And what I mean by that in this case, right, that flower gets you this incredible power. And, you know, I can only imagine that none of you here today are selling substances that induce fireballs, right? Super important. But that level up mentality is really what drives so many consumer behaviors, because we all see ourselves as heroes in our own story. So a lot of what we consume is done to be a better version than we are before. Now, cultural and tourism is absolutely no different in any way, shape, or form from anything else that's a product that's sort of marketed, right? And ITO has taken that desire for people to seek cultural enrichment and origin as well. And by melding it with this visual form of VR, what they've done is they've created a way to deliver exactly what that value has always been from those businesses, but made it a lot more accessible in the process. And this isn't just for now. And I think that's really important too. A point to make is that regardless of what happens or how quickly, you know, COVID resolves itself, whether or not that's a short term or a small term, what we have here is tools that are now being used forever. You can use them forever to continue until there's that next wave of technology, because they make things more accessible. They make it easier for your customers to connect with you on a basis that's really special, right? It creates a relationship, and those relationships drive value and drive sales going forward, right? The idea here is that we're delivering the same value and creating that same magic as an entrepreneur, but using different or new or innovative channels, right? It's exactly what this digital shift is all about. And so just super excited that they were able to come in today and give us sort of a talk on how they did that and the process that they approach it with. So you've all received a copy of this digital shift workbook that we provided to you. If you want to check or you didn't see it, it's in your online event page through Eventbrite. Now, a lot of this information we've actually duplicated within the workbook, so it can be found inside the tool itself. But I wanted to go through and sort of chat it out right now. So we started the tool with a couple of pieces of this Mad Lib entertainment for you, and it's really important to standardize these two cornerstone statements, which are the hypothesis and, of course, your value proposition. Now, they're going to help guide you as standards across every single experiment that you run sort of in perpetuity. So we recommend that all of these experiments are run for a minimum of 4 weeks so you can really properly assess them. So let's sort of get started. So when you start with the digital hypothesis, which is really just a super fancy way of saying that this is my best guess, right? It really helps us to clarify our assumptions. Now, the beautiful part about this tool is that it isn't just for your biggest and best ideas. It can actually be used for any and every idea that you want to test out in your business, especially when you want to test it out before you make it core to what you do, right? It's really important to test things so that we make sure that what we think is actually the same as what we know. And this is the same method we've taught to hundreds of startups who traditionally have very few resources outside of their amazing brains. There's this crazy myth out there that you need a bunch of funding to start a tech business, and that has 100% been proven false. The same goes for those experiments. They're low cost and low risk. So we put a framework around these things because it helps you to really understand what's worth doing sort of long term, and what may maybe needs to be retired as an idea. So the hypothesis is actually what scientists use when they're doing experiments as well. So you might remember that from high school science classes or Magic School Bus. But really what you're going to go through at the beginning of each experiment are these really fundamental pieces. So when you move into that value proposition piece, you can see how we're starting to frame this up, right? The value proposition is really the North Star statement of your experiments and your business. It helps really build everything from that marketing and communication messages to products and innovation. And this is something that we heard our team at Origin sort of talk about is, does the value come through in this new medium, right? And that's what you want to think about as you develop out these opportunities. So some may call this value proposition your elevator pitch or a positioning statement, but what really matters most is that if you stay true to that value you wanted to initially deliver, that you've always delivered when you create a new idea, you're not going to get lost on even the most adventurous of these digital shift experiments. Now, these two key pillars are deceptively simple to fill out, but what I do is I encourage you to take some time to really plan them carefully. So we're not going to fill in the rest of the tool quite as particularly as we did with the first two pieces here. I won't sort of break it down quite as granular, but I really hope that it gives you an outline of how you can actually adapt this to your own ideas. What we want is for you to set up these first two key statements and make them sort of crucial to be able to get the most out of the rest of the tool. So when you're moving through this process, you go into your customer control group piece, and you don't want to roll out these experiments to every customer you have, right? What if they're terrible? What if customers hate them? So it's more time and effort invested into something that may or may not be sustainable long term. So what you want to do, you really want to choose a control group super carefully. You want to ensure they represent a good variety of your overall customer base. And you're going to use this box, this space, to define some factors that you're going to use to determine the sample size and the customers you're going to test this out with. What customer segment are you going to use as the test? Now, this, of course, is going to change from business to business or from experience to experience, depending on what experiment you want to run. What's important, though, again, is that you're not testing on everybody. You're taking a small sample, but a good sort of overview or cross-section of your customers and saying, okay, we're going to try something new on them. Let's see how they react. And this will help you with saving time, saving effort and energy, and also disappointment if something doesn't quite pan out. And that's all part of the process, right? So now that we have who we're trying to target and exactly how we're going to determine whether or not they are a fit for our experiment, you want to move into the channels and engagement piece. So communication is everything as a small business. Now, what's really wonderful is that you can connect with your customers in direct and productive ways as a small business. So what is the best way to get the word out about your new offering? And how are we going to get a hold of our customers, and how are we going to hold their hands to ensure that they have the experience we really want them to have through this process? Now, what's really interesting here is that giant businesses like Apple and Amazon, they only wish they had the kind of control you have over getting feedback from your customers. As a small business, you're able to directly connect, and that means all of the feedback you get is firsthand, which makes it so incredibly valuable. You're going to use this box to answer the questions around how you plan on getting the word out, to let your customer control group know about this exciting new idea that you're going to try out. So moving into the metrics piece, the effectiveness of business experiments, any experiment, really depends on your ability as that business to observe the outcomes, right? You don't want to just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks without measuring why it's sticking, how it's sticking, that kind of thing. And so the absolute beauty of being that small or relatively small business, working again directly with your customers, is that you can observe more effectively than any other business out there. Honestly, it's a superpower for driving innovation. And one of the things we always tell our clients is that if you treasure it, you measure it, whether that's revenue or customer satisfaction, the number of referrals you're getting, repeat purchases, profit margins. What you measure, of course, just like everything else in this canvas, is going to change based on your experiment and based on your business. What is really important, though, is to ensure that you're able to measure easily and that you take the time needed to digest all of this beautiful data that you're about to create. Now, I can't really stress this one enough. Taking the time to work on your business is just as important as taking the time to work in it. And I think that there was this beautiful sort of luxury that happened mid-crisis when everything first started getting crazy in March, where people all of a sudden had this time to work on their business or think about how they were going to pivot. And unfortunately, I think as things have gotten busier, we've sort of lost that ability to take a step back and remove ourselves from the situation and say, okay, how do I reset the deck? How do I continue thinking? And my suggestion is really simple, is put some time in your calendar to make sure that you're still making time and space for this as a business owner, because that's how you shelter yourself or shield yourself from the effects of this potentially the next time a wave hits, right? Is staying flexible and keeping all of your sort of wits about you so that you continue to evolve your business beyond the status quo and into sort of what's new and what's next, right? You want to do throughout this entire process is collect and collect and collect all of this information until you've really ensured that you have enough information to decide whether this experiment is something wonderful or worth letting fizzle out. And so when we look at the workflow and mechanics portion here, this section is really how, right? It's the perfect space to get really particular about the execution of your experiment. Now, there's a very old joke that sort of asks, how do you eat an elephant? And ends with, in one bite at a time. And really what I mean there, aside from I want all of your laughs, but your experiments may seem like an elephant. So breaking it down into very small bites can really help. And I know that's so much easier said than done, but what I do is I suggest taking the time to break everything down into tasks, right? If you're having trouble identifying those tasks, start out just by asking yourself which steps need to be performed for the project to be finished, and then go work backwards from there. So really breaking down that project according to those crucial tasks, it can help you divide it into even larger chunks or milestones. So you may notice attached to your workbook, we included a 30, 60, 90-day tracker as part of this workbook. And so once you have sort of the basics laid out here, you can break it down even further into this timeline that we've provided and take everything week by week in your experiments. Use what you learn this week to power the changes and tweaks and all of the things that you're going to do in the experiments next week. But take that time to let it digest, right? In the tracking section here, you're going to be identifying everything based on the metrics you've already defined. So tracking what the overall outcome is that you've observed, the date measured, because you're going to do this more than once over that life of the experiment. Weekly is a great sort of cadence there. And then the change plus or minus from where you first started, right? So it's easy benchmarking here. And then any additional notes that you have on the process. The point here is to really look at whether or not your initial beliefs, what you assumed, were correct or not. Was your best guess right? Now, we hope that this process provides you a ton of opportunity to learn. And by tracking these things really carefully, you'll be way more likely to remember the final details when it comes time to assess all of the results. So we recommend, again, running these experiments no less than a full month to be able to draw the best possible picture of these effects. And when we say run it for a month, what I really mean is in the hands of your customers for 1 month. The setup and sort of the prep, that doesn't count. So it's just as long as it's sort of in market and being sold to those customers. So moving into your results section, by answering these 3 questions that we have here, you should really be able to make somewhat of a judgment call. Do you want to lean in, learn more, or halt completely? Now, leaning in means growing the experiment into a full-time offering to all of your clients or customers. Learning more means extending the experiment, changing up maybe some of your approach, or plugging in some of the new answers into your map based on what you've learned as you sort of adjust to what your customers' feedback is. And halting, of course, is in no way seen as a negative. In the world of startups, yeses and nos are equally valuable because of the hard data they provide. It's really the maybes that are sort of the absolute worst. So if you decide that your experiment is a halt, we hope you also decide to take your learning lessons and apply them to your next big idea. Rest assured, though, you're going to have so many more big ideas. Actually, there's so much research that says that tracking ideas like this, just the act of tracking them, putting things down on paper, actually acts as like a basic greenhouse for growing more ideas, right? Creativity is this beautiful muscle that can be exercised and improved on like any other. Now, the box for your next steps is really simple. Do you create a system to scale up this experiment so that you're able to offer it on a regular basis, and how would that work? Or do you move on to your next sort of aha moment, right? Remember to come back and finish this last little box after you've made that decision. So this is a document you're going to be working with month after month as you try out these experiments. Now, when you make a final decision, there's sort of a second part to this tool entirely, and that's in the form of this digital shift calculator that we've created. So the calculator is designed to be super intuitive and really easy to use. And it isn't about the numbers here at all. I know that you know whether or not something is good based on the math, right? You're a brilliant business owner and you've been doing it a long time. So what I wanted to measure was some of the softer factors that I feel are just as important in order to help you inform your decisions. Now, I developed out these 9 factors to really assess the long-term sustainability of these experiments. It's super easy to do. Really just score your experiment across all 9 factors based on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being that you strongly disagree based on the evidence, and 10 being that you strongly agree, again, based on the evidence. It calculates everything for you, and you'll get a score at the bottom on a scale of 1 to 100. Now, based on that score, you should have a pretty good idea whether or not something is worth pursuing, or it needs work to hit more of these factors in a meaningful way, or it's just not valuable after, a long term. And so this is something that's really easy to do. You're going to know in your gut, in your intuition, whether or not something's going to work for your business. But I think this is a really great opportunity to, either bring to your partners, bring to your staff, bring to, whoever it is that you trust as an advisor and say, hey, I'm trying this out. I'm taking a look at things. I really want you to take a look too. Here's sort of what my gut says, and here's what the data is telling us as well. This could work or this couldn't, right? Now, we designed this entire tool to really include a standalone guide. So in each of your guides, you'll see that you can go through all of this on your own. But please remember that we will be back for another workshop later in the fall with Justin to do some more tech and entrepreneurship piece, which we're not finalized yet, but we will be back there. So there's another opportunity to sort of talk out some of this stuff and take a look at what some other people have done through this process. So we've also included a link at the end of your workbook to a directory of all the small business enterprise centers across Ontario. So your local SBEC has staff that can help you gather resources as you develop out these experiments. And I also want to mention, really important, is that Digital Main Street, which is a program that's really ramping up again in Ontario. It's now accepting new applicants. So you can access DMS, Digital Main Street, services through any of your small business centers or potentially your local BIAs, where they provide training, resources, and investment dollars to assist you in creating digital channels for your business. There's also a new stream here of Digital Main Street program called Future-Proof. And Future-Proof has a number of additional resources to help with really deep total transformations of a business. Applications are now open for that as well. So to check all of these out, please head to digitalmainstreet.ca for more information. Fantastic. And at this point, I will turn everything over back to Justin.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Adam, for sharing your expertise and those amazing resources, and so glad we're able to have those sent out to all the participants as well. And we will, as Adam mentioned, I think at the beginning, this is recorded, so we'll be sharing this on social media and on our website, tourisminnovation.ca, if you want to see a run through or any of the previous 3 sessions where we highlighted different areas of tourism and how they were making a digital shift. So thanks so much, Adam and WEtech Alliance. Love to partner with you guys and looking forward to the next one. Stay tuned. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. We hope you found this informative and inspiring. An evaluation survey will be sent out later this afternoon, and appreciate any feedback or questions you might have, as well as ideas for any future workshops or programs we might be considering to put forward. If you'd like to learn more about the lab and our programs, go to tourisminnovation.ca. We will be announcing, as Adam mentioned, more workshops and other Tourism Plus Tech initiatives in the coming weeks and months, and definitely have had a lot of interest from other partners to collaborate around that. So stay tuned. And as I mentioned at the top, the lab has a Spark Mentorship and Grants program for those who have new tourism ideas. So maybe something that you might be testing with these tools. And we are launching the Spark program this fall in Bruce County, Cornwall, London, Northwest Ontario, Oxford County, and Windsor, Essex. So if you're in those places or know a colleague or friends or family in those places, stay tuned to our website and social media to find out more and consider applying. So thanks again. Thanks to our partners. Thanks to Kevin, Melissa, and Paul, our special panelists today. And wishing everyone the best. Take care. And until next time, bye for now.